Hey everyone, I have an exciting show for you today. This channel is growing and I'm getting a lot of experts and experienced resources from across the country and even across the world. We're going to have somebody from Asia on Sunday, I think. But who we have today is Ronnie Elias. How you doing, Ronnie?
How are you? Thanks so much for having me on.
Oh, absolutely. I loved our little debrief, right? Typically my guests, we spend 3 or 4 minutes just get to know each other and then we go, just like today. And the thing that I liked about our story is, or your story is, you 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 saw blood in the street in '07, '08 in Florida, and you know what that means. Too many people, too many people have only been doing this 4 or 5 years and they've only known the good times. And no matter how many times I warned them doing this for 20 years, they didn't want to listen. So just level set for folks. What did you see in '07, '08? Because it could be similar to today. And we'll get into today next.
Sure thing. So my time, I was with a large fund in Florida. I ran the fund. We grew the fund to over $500 million in size. The nice thing about our fund, we had two owners, extreme high net worth individuals, and so forth. So it was very, I hate to say funny, but unique. I mean, before '07 to '09, the bank would call you up and say, why do you only want to borrow 30 million? Borrow 40, borrow 50. You're good. You're good. You're paying your mortgages. We like you. This is quality assets. You know, take more. Why are you taking less money? Then '07, '09, it's done. No
Yeah.
money. You can't borrow. Um, the bank would come to you and they would sit down and say, here's our loans. Do you want to buy any of these loans?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to buy your own loan?
Yeah.
You want to we'll sell you the loan 50% off. You want to
Mm-hmm.
take it? We need money in the door.
I remember.
And it was and then it was unfortunate just seeing some colleagues who were at, much larger firms. It was just like termination. We're closing down.
Yeah.
Um, we can't afford staff. Um, you know, bankruptcy attorneys were extremely busy,
Yeah.
and it was very scary. One thing, I was in Orlando. Um, one thing that had really taken off was folks would buy apartment complexes, and they would turn them into condos.
I
So they
remember.
would be buying these 300-unit complexes. They'll spruce them up. Put $5,000 to $10,000 into them. Granite
Yep.
countertops. Kind of make them sexy and so forth. And they were buying them like at 1 or 2% cap rates.
Oh,
So no one was able to compete with them.
yeah.
But their goal was, well, I'm not really buying this for a cash flow deal. I was
Exactly.
buying it to upgrade it. I maybe spent 150,000. I'll put 10 grand in. I'm going to sell this thing for 250, 300,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm making a killing. $100,000 profit times 300,000.
Boom.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm the man. And so forth. But unfortunately, you know, yes, were some people successful in that? Sure, they were, but there were a lot that were not successful. I mean, it
Yeah.
just
If you got in
it,
early and you could get through 90% of the sale, because really what you're doing is you're buying a rental and you're flipping it into an owner, which is something that's going to happen in California if we're not careful, because we just had rent control adopted about 6 or 9 months ago statewide. And that's what people don't get with rent control is you're just incenting the removal of rental stock being upgraded to owner stock. But that's not the topic of the discussion. But that stuff's coming, and it will probably be one of the things that get us out of this crisis. But it's probably 2 or 3 years away because we need to go down before we can go back up. Ronnie, just so folks know your role, what was your job title? Because you're talking about lots of great things, and I just want people to understand you were in the business.
sure
What you
thing.
did.
I was with a fund. I was the asset manager, so I oversaw. We were a small team. We were under 10 folks. I kind of oversaw everyone. We had in-house legal, in-house leasing. We predominantly focused on retail, shopping centers, some triple net assets, which are kind of like standalone CVS,
Mm-hmm.
Chick-fil-A, and so forth. And
Gotcha.
then we had some apartment complexes. Um, and office buildings. So we
Yeah.
really were able to kind of see from all different avenues what was happening, from some of our, retail tenants to
Yeah.
our residential tenants and so forth. We were lucky, we kind of kept low loan to costs
Yeah.
because, our ownership group was, they weren't the youngest, but they kind of had seen some cycles,
Yeah.
and they were not big fans of debt, just because they know that relationship with the bank can quickly change
Oh
from,
yeah.
hey, we love you, to knock, knock, knock,
Yeah.
where's my money? And
Calling the loan. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, and
Exactly.
Uncle Vinny is there, asking for the money. And so that was, unique. And then we took a very different approach. One thing I try to tell people is, as a landlord, you're almost somewhat like a bank, because you
Okay.
really got to underwrite your tenants.
Ah, yeah, yeah, for sure.
Because I mean, like, for example, look at, major mall owners.
Mm-hmm.
You have whomever, Macy's,
Yep.
and so forth. You've really got to say, okay, yes, these tenants are public, but how are they doing?
Right.
Um, is there going to come a point where these guys might come knock on my door and say, here's the keys,
Here's the
and
keys. Yeah, we're done.
uh, yeah, we're done. And then, you just built this massive facility for them.
Yeah.
You gave them a lot of rent concessions to get them in there. And
Yeah.
then, how do you retrofit, the next person? Because how I've always, the tenants come in and say, yeah, this is a nice place, but you know what? It doesn't really work for what I want to do. I've got to
Exactly.
knock out this wall. I got to do this. And then they look to you and say, well, I guess you're going to pay for all of these renovations. And then
That's
you're like, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. I mean,
yeah.
and, at that point, you've got to make a hard decision. Okay, I can sit here, try to wait for someone else to come in
Yeah.
and rent the space.
Right.
Or do I just take the bullet, put this person in here and move forward?
Yeah. So as an asset manager in Florida, which was hard hit, because again, it was a very residential crash back then. When did you leave Florida? So how long did you
I left
bottom out and come
Florida in
back?
no, I left Florida in 2016.
All right. So you saw
I'm
you
now
saw
in,
it come back, right?
yeah, I saw
Right.
it come back.
So let's tell people it does get better, folks. Even though it looks like there's craziness out there, it will get worse, but then it will get better. So can you talk about how that evolution happened? Because for me, 2010 was the most pain, meaning I bought the most cheap stuff. But by 2012, hedge funds came in, it was over. I mean, I couldn't find anything. Right. I mean, that's how it changed for me, but that's residential. I'm curious, as an asset manager with deep pockets, what did you see?
I think what we should, we were kind of playing more. We were just kind of focusing on our assets.
Mm.
Maybe we should have, we should have probably used that time period. We did, negotiate some discounts
Mm-hmm.
on our. We just focused on our own deals, and we were able to get discounts on our own stuff.
Right. That makes
Um,
sense. If you could, yeah, it makes sense.
we should have probably, but the problem, it's kind of, when you're going through the motions, and then, folks that you kind of were like, these guys were kicking butt and doing well, and then, now they're just 80% staff laid off.
Yeah.
Foreclosure listings are going through the roof. Sometimes you kind of get caught up and be like, is this the end of days? What's
Yeah.
going on here?
Just I'm,
I mean,
I'm just happy to survive, right? It's just what it boils down to sometimes.
exactly.
Yeah.
And you really get caught up with, like, okay, like, you've got to be very cost efficient.
Yep.
I think the most important thing, you got to consistently stay humble. And
Yeah.
technology has made life much easier. With tech now, you can have a small team and still do a large amount of work.
For
I mean,
sure.
if you really use technology correctly. I think you've got to really kind of just, business is doing good. We're kicking butt, making a lot of money, but, there has to be a real control on expenses.
Mm-hmm.
we were big proponents of always, kind of every year we sit down with all of the vendors and say, okay, listen, I know we're paying you X, but what can we do about X? Can
Right.
we give you some more business so we can get a reduction in X, and so forth? So we would kind of look at doing that. And I know a lot of the vendors did not like that because we
Sure.
were kind of every year trying to beat them up for better and better pricing. But we would try to say, well, I'm going to give you some more business. Can you
Yeah.
work with us?
Cool.
Or, sometimes we would say, what happens if I prepay you 6 months?
Yeah.
Can I get a discount from you?
Makes sense.
And so forth. And some vendors were open to that,
Yeah.
and that worked well. I mean, we're living in the new age today.
Oh, for sure, for sure. So as we write, as you leave Florida in 2016, again, I don't know Florida at all other than what I read. I'm going to say it was at least coming back, right? It wasn't still down. The market was up.
No, the market was up. People were very active.
Okay.
Construction development was booming.
Right.
Architects were,
Busy again and stuff.
busy again.
Yeah.
Going to, the city council meetings. There was a full docket.
Yeah.
And so forth.
Okay.
So it was very active. I mean, it like, hey, the bad times, we don't remember those.
Yeah, they're gone.
They're gone. Your banker now is at a new bank, and he's calling you up saying, hey, I want to lend you money.
Yep.
How can we make some deals?
Yeah, it'll happen again. Yep.
Right. I mean, and that's you got to keep good relationship with your banker, because
Absolutely.
if the normal banker will move around, 5-6 times, and that's his book of business. He's going to call you up if you're a good borrower and say, hey, listen, I'm at a new bank, and so forth. Let me give you some money, and so forth. But it was, again, I just remember that, like, the phone calls from the lenders when it was like, you're kind of low on your LTC here. Why don't you borrow some more? And then it was just a complete change. And that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about some people, they think, well, oh, the bank will just renew me. They'll give me another year or two.
I don't know. That's an assumption is dangerous for sure. So now let's fast forward the clock. Do you go right from Florida to where you are now in Virginia, or was there a stop in between?
My ownership group was wonderful. They gave me the opportunity where they connected me with some other folks that wanted to kind of do a little bit of alternative asset investing.
Okay.
I was able to team up with them, came here to Town Center Partners in Virginia, built the team up. We're now about 15 team members. And we've actually kind of starting building what we call the asset advisory group, kind of the real estate side of the firm, where we're kind of focusing on buying for a lot of our investors and clients, apartment complexes and multifamily. I will say we probably over the last 2 years looked at 300 plus deals, but we never could get to the prices where sellers were at.
Right.
We would sometimes make it to, the best and final, and then, they want to extract more money from you during the best and final.
Sure.
And it was just, again, that 07 to 09 time period, I was like, this is the making of that again. Like, prices, like, people are not, they're like, okay, I'll just buy it, I'll put more money into it, and I'll push rents up, and it's gonna work.
It is so sad how this is repeating, and more importantly, I called it, right? I've been calling it on my channel for a while, right? 2005 to 2007, or 2004 to 2006, depending on what state you're in. It was lending for residential properties caused a bubble, bar none. Can't argue it. You can argue the dates and the months and all that nonsense, fine, when it happened. But bad lending led to inflated prices. And again, just to put numbers on it, I sold a place for 265 or 266 in late 06 that crashed all the way to 75. and just retraded at 188. That's 14 years later. It's still almost 100 grand less than what I sold it for. That's how much bad lending it is. Why I bring that up is we did the same stupid thing in multifamily from 2017 to 2019. It was still stupid lending, but it was done differently because we had to bring in equity investors, right? We brought in limited partners in equity positions that are screwed now, that when we have to go back and rents don't go up 3% a year because, who said that was going to happen? And oh, by the way, cap rates go from 4 to 6.5. And oh, by the way, economic occupancy goes from 96 to 89. Your equity's gone. It's. I mean, yeah, the debt
that
service,
point, the
but
seller,
you're done.
Yeah, the bank is who you're talking to at that point.
Yeah, the equity's gone. All you're doing is you're talking to the 60% first position. And
exactly.
You're like,
and they are going to be, I have to be very careful of what I say here. Banks operate in a box.
yes.
They are, they are not very nimble like a real estate investor or a business owner. A business owner can say, hey, I know how, this is how I can move things.
Yep.
I can do this, do that. A bank is going to just tell you money, property, judgment, bankruptcy. Which one is it?
Yeah, exactly.
There's
only 2 or 3 outcomes from this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again,
that's how they're going to operate with you.
And the box that you're referring to, which I think is absolutely correct, what people don't realize is that box can get slightly bigger and it can get slightly constrained based on how fearful or greedy they are. And I use fearful and greedy just because I can't think of better words, looser or tighter or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And right now that box is getting really, really tight, right there. Extra reserves, and I think it gets tighter for probably the rest of the year. I don't know. What do you think about that? You've been doing this a while. Do you think lending in the commercial apartment multifamily, could it get tighter, or is this as tight as you've ever seen?
No, I think it could get a little bit tighter because, okay, we saw April. Yep. And I'll be honest. I thought April was going to be worse than what it was.
For
but,
collection,
April was, from rent collection and
much
so
better.
forth. But
totally
April
agree.
was awesome. It was like what COVID what?
Yeah.
It's normal.
Yeah.
What happens, May, June, July.
Yeah.
And one thing I wish I did, I was yesterday at Costco and I saw a couple folks leaving Costco with 86-inch TVs. And I was like, man, that is nice. I mean, I need to get an 86-inch TV. But then I said, I'm going to buy me this big screen TV. What am I going to watch? I mean, there's no NBA.
Yeah.
Who knows when's the next sports and so forth. So I just, from, just people watching or consumer watching was, I just want to know, did people who got these checks from the government, was this money really put aside to pay for rent or food or what? Or, hey, this money came in and I'm going to
free money is not often treated with the respect it deserves, as generally speaking, right? Some people certainly saved it. Some people certainly paid rent. But there are a lot of 86-inch TVs flying around with a $1,200 check that came in the mail. No question. So, I think May is going to be interesting. Yeah, I collected 97-ish%, basically down 1% from March. So I'll call that a normal month.
Yeah.
So, I think lending's going to get tighter. I am curious, the fact that you guys didn't do a lot of deal, right? You got to best and final a couple of times. I'm impressed.
I think we're superstars. I think, right now we're very happy because, we have a lot of cash sitting on the sidelines. We're going to sit and look. I mean, I'll be honest, this last 2 weeks, we've probably had 30 phone calls with lenders.
Yep.
We've told them, hi, Town Center Partners, here's our contact information. When when you want to start liquidating some loans or stuff comes back in special assets, here's our contact information. Would love to do a deal. You know, is that being, you know, are we a negative Nancy, a Debbie
No.
Downer? I think, you know, I think there's, you know, these lenders are going to have to start taking back so many assets.
Yeah,
Just because.
I think it's first and foremost, everybody should be networking with bankers today. I mean, that's one of the things I've done the last 2 or 3 days is go meet, and if you're a residential guy like me, go meet your community bank, right? Go meet those folks. If you're a big asset manager like yourself, then you go talk to the big boys, right? You can get Bank of America and Wells Fargo, and you can talk to people that won't talk to me. But yeah, you absolutely have to do that. The one thing I'm thinking, and I'm just curious about you, is at least in residential, because of all these forbearances going on, I'm starting to think that we won't see mini deals until like 2021.
I agree with you. I think, you know,
Really?
the next
Okay.
3 to 4 months,
Yeah.
it's crickets.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Unless someone is forced to do a deal or something, or maybe this was kind of, you know, in the works for a while, and finally something
just
breaks.
You know,
breaks. I think you're going to see crickets for a while, because first off, one thing we want to know is, okay, are we truly operational as a country or as a world?
Yeah.
You know,
start with the world.
Is the supply chains back to normal?
Totally.
Or whatever the new normal is.
Yeah.
What's going on with universities and schools? You know, are kids able to go back to school?
Yeah.
Are you able to, you know, go get that Harvard degree that's costing your parents, you know, $40,000, $50,000 a year?
Yeah.
You know, what's going on with that? And then what is the lending's response to that? You know, are the banks now, okay, I think this is working out. This looks good.
Lending. Yeah. Oh man, lenders. It is so much about lenders. Lenders, just by clamping down or loosening up. If you just watch one thing, watch lending. When lending gets easier, prices generally rise. When lending gets tight, prices generally fall. Sometimes it's just that simple, right?
Exactly. I mean, who's your biggest partner in the deal? It's the bank. The bank comes in, will give you, you know, let's call it 70, maybe 80% of the money. And then, you know, you go either with, you know, either it's you by yourself, you're going to put in that remaining money, or maybe you have some investors. All right, boom, bank, you put in 70, 80, we put in 20, 30, kumbaya, and, you know, off we go, and, you know, rinse and repeat.
Yeah, I guess
in good times.
The question I have for you, Ronnie, is you're adding zeros to things that I look at, which is always fun to talk to people, right? Because you're probably looking to deploy 10, 50, 100 million over the next, I don't know, years, right? So
I would say substantially more than that. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
That is our goal.
Yeah.
That is the goal.
So how do you? So again, I'm just trying to play this out. I'm just going to pick a number, $500 million. I'm just picking a random ass number, $500 million. So 2020 is about making connections, right? Making sure everybody knows Town Center Partners LLC and has your numbers. You probably start seeing a trickle of deals because you have death and divorce and just life events that could bring deals together when there are no buyers. So you're going to get some activity, but that money's got to be patient, right? Because you may not be able to deploy at least a significant percentage of it till 2022, maybe. It's got to be patient money.
You know, it's always kind of, you know, when you get the phone call, you got to be quick to move, because you might get that call and it's like, here's the deal. Can you meet these terms? Can you close in 14 or 30 days?
Yeah.
And boom, you quickly close all cash. Then you can think about, okay, maybe I'll refinance and try to pull out maybe 50% of my equity so I can go buy the next deal. So you've got to kind of be quick like that. Or is it more of a deal where, listen, we just want to sell you the paper. If you want to go foreclose these guys out, they're already in default. They haven't paid us the last 90 days.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you call them up and you say, hey, my name is Ronnie. I'm your
Yeah.
new lender.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, how can we work this out? And then depending on that point,
That's actually
you're
a
going to
great
get,
point. This is the second day in a row. I'm gonna have to figure this out because somebody yesterday who's done, they're an individual, but 7,000 of these over the last crisis.
oh, wow.
He said one of the most profitable things was to buy a discounted note, a first position, then go cure it, meaning lower payments or whatever it is. Let that run for 12 months. That asset, that loan then gets repriced because it's now performing, and then you sell it. So it's just loan to loan. I mean, that's some of the most profitable deals he said he's ever done. And is that what you're really talking about here? Because I think I've never done it. And I think people need to look at it. Let's just go buy paper.
We look at it as more as we're going to buy you the paper, and then we're going to be like, because, depending if it's a commercial type loan
Sure.
and if it was non-recourse, there's some bad boy carve outs. So what
Okay.
usually kind of happens is you'll call them up and say, listen, let's say it's a $30 million loan. You're
Okay.
getting it at a discount. So maybe you bought it at 20
Okay.
or, 22.
All
So
right.
you're kind of ahead. But as we know, the value has taken
No
it's
doubt.
gone down.
Yep.
So you can't really look at old numbers. So what you do, you call up the
Well, hold
borrower
on,
and
Ronnie,
say,
hold on. Let's
sure,
really paint this picture. Let's assume it's a $50 million asset. There's a $30 million loan at the time of buying. Then the bank sells it to you for 22. Okay. Just so we have the math, because we
sure.
missed that first piece. So it was a $50 million asset. It is now, I don't know, 38, 35. It's something. It's not 50.
Right. Or it's 22.
Yeah, it could
It's
be.
what the cash traded for.
There you go. It could
So
be. Yeah.
so you call up your, the borrower
Yeah.
and say, listen, hey, I want to advise you, hey, we're now your new lender.
Yeah.
As you're aware, you're 90 days behind.
Yeah.
Do you want to try to resolve this issue? Maybe, we do quote unquote a deed in lieu where
Yep.
they just kind of sign the deed over,
Yep.
or, it's kind of a consent foreclosure.
Yeah.
Because sometimes what might happen is you're in first position, but you're now buying a property where, let's say maybe these guys haven't paid a lot of contractors. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of liens on the property.
For sure.
And, the contractor's saying, I want to get paid. Well, do you want to take a discount?
Yeah.
No. All right. Understood. So you go to the person, you try to do a foreclosure, you wipe out all these second liens,
Mm-hmm.
and it's now fresh and clean. And, you try to tell them, hey, we're not going to chase you for bad boy carve outs. So, you can kind of walk away. Some people might accept it. Some people might tell you, pound sand, I ain't doing that.
Right.
And now, you got a budget. Okay, I've got to spend, a couple $100,000 going through, some type of litigation or foreclose, some type of bankruptcy and so forth. I mean, at the end of the day, the court's just going to look at you and say, did you borrow the money?
Yeah.
Yes, I did. You haven't paid? No, I haven't paid.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
What
They're
do you
buying.
want me to do?
Yeah. They're buying time at this point.
Exactly.
But it's the end is known. The date is just not, right. I think that's pretty well known. So just because you've used this term a lot of my listeners won't know what it is. Bad boy carve outs. Why don't you kind of give a sample of what that might be and why those are part of commercial contracts and not residential, if you don't mind.
Sure thing. So usually, the sponsor or the general partner or the main folks of the deal, they're going to go get a loan, and the loan's going to say, okay, hey, this is non-recourse, so you're not personally guaranteeing this money,
Right.
but you will personally guarantee this money if we end up finding out, you have done these bad things, and these bad things can be fraud, theft. You gave us fraudulent
Financials.
personal financials.
Yeah. Okay.
Or, you try to, instead of letting us be able to move forward in the foreclosure and just kind of taking a back seat, you start to fight us and so forth. So now we can invoke those guarantees. And now, guess what? Instead of suing, John Doe Apartments LLC, we're now going to sue not only John Doe Apartments LLC, we're going to sue John Doe.
Got it.
And you are now on the hook for that $30 million loan. So now and that's just a pressure tactic the bank wants to put on you, where you're like, oof, I don't got $30 million under.
I'm out.
I mean, yeah. So at that point, you might just say, does it? Now, of course, if you took investors' money, that's going to be a very, tough phone call or email or however way you're going to communicate, saying, hey, we are now in bankruptcy, we're in foreclosure, and so forth.
Your equity is now X or 0 or whatever.
The equity's gone because the bank's saying, hey, I'm in first position. And then, the one thing I saw that some banks were uber aggressive, some banks were saying, okay, you defaulted April 1st. While your normal mortgage payment might have been $50,000, you're now in default interest. And we're going to charge you the maximum we can charge you, which depending on whatever your state is, that could be 20, 24%. So your $50,000 payment now ballooned maybe to 150,000.
Yeah, it could.
And now they're going to say, well, you also owe us legal fees. So maybe there's another 20 or 30,000.
Yeah, they're going to get everything they can.
Exactly. So it's just think of it like a cash register that's out of control. It's
just it's like the national debt. It's just
right. Oh, it's like you don't even want to know what the payoff is.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
It's ballooned.
Yeah,
it's ballooned.
Yeah, just no equity. That's the long and short of a lot of these deals. A lot of these deals done in the last 3 years. There's the best thing a LP could hope for, my opinion, not yours, is the operator keeps the building and they hold it for an extra 10 years. I think the best outcome is they double the hold time from 5 to 10 years to 10 to 20 years. I think that's going to be the best outcome for lots of LPs. Otherwise, they'll just be wiped out if there's a forced sale, in my opinion.
See, first off, you said something very smart, which I don't know if people are scared to say it or what. If you bought in the last 3 years, you are in serious trouble.
Yeah.
Because you've paid a very high price. You've paid, quote unquote, top of the market. Or at least top of the market as we know it now.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know where the market will go 5 years from today. Who knows? Maybe, it'll be great. I got people telling me, hey, gold is going to go 10 times. So,
yeah, I mean,
who knows? Maybe property, maybe property values will go. But I mean,
maybe.
You've paid top dollar. But the problem is a lot of these folks, most of the times when they've done their projections, they say, okay, hey, we plan to be out in 5 years, but we might get out sooner and so forth. So, well, if they're going to be out in 5, that means they probably did not go get 10-year debt on their. So they got
interest only 5-year money. That's what they got.
And the problem is a lot of these folks, I think you'll see is going to be problematic is bridge debt.
Yes.
And bridge debt kind of is short-term funding where they'll tell you 3 + 1 + 1. So a lot of people, I think, got worried or when they read 3 + 1 + 1 is 5. Yeah. But really what 3 + 1 + 1 is 3. Because after year 3, that lender can say, well, let's review the financials. Let's do an appraisal.
Bingo.
Let's go through the P&L. Let's do this. Well, the value now is less.
Yeah, the value was 12. It's now 9. You need to raise equity. So you need to do a capital call, and your LPs are going to go, F you.
Right. So now they're going to tell you, now your lender, instead of writing you checks, is going to say, sure, I'll extend you +1 for $2 million.
Exactly.
And then we'll look at +1. At that point, maybe I need another $2 million from you.
Oh my God.
And at that point, what do you do?
Yeah. So this is why Town Center Partners is going to be busy. And I agree with you. It's the bridge debt is what's going to crack first. And
I think the bridge, the CMBS is going to be problematic. if there are some, I don't want to call them community banks, but there are some banks, like Florida, there were some community banks that had some, they had raised a lot of money
Yeah.
and they wanted to get involved in big deals with quality developers. So they would go give, a developer or an investor, here's 20 million, here's 30 million.
Yeah.
And
too deep in one pool. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. So it's going to happen. So yeah. So I guess this sounds bad, but it's kind of how capitalism works, right? You avoided making a mistake, which now looks like you're a hero because you didn't overpay.
Exactly.
And now people who have overpaid over the next, again, I don't think it happens in any great numbers this year, but you're about to be a very, very busy man, kind of in 2021.
That's the goal. But the problem is, here becomes a problem. Okay, I know what the price was at ridiculous amounts,
Yep.
or top of the market.
You know the peak, yeah.
I know the peak. What is now coming over that hill? Because that hill, depending, again, we're trying to look at it, okay, you really have to be focused on, okay, how am I going to set myself apart? Okay, yes, I'm an investor. I'm going to buy these things. Now, how can I make sure the tenants I have in my property are good tenants? I treat them well.
Yeah.
I want them to stay. I want them to pay me. I want them to make sure paying me is important, and so forth. Because, there's going to be, I mean, first off, one thing we've kind of internally joked about is, okay, right now a lot of these complexes have shut down all of their amenities. So you can't use the
Pools
swimming
and
pool.
gyms and
You can't use, exactly. So what happens now? The tenants say, okay, you kind of sold me on this place because I had all of these amenities. I mean, probably the only thing that's operational, and it depends on, dog parks, if they're even operational now. Some places have even shut those down.
Yeah.
So I can't take my kids to go play on the swings.
Yep.
I can't go work out. I can't go swimming. I can't go play billiards or watch, the game on the big TV.
Yeah.
So you've taken all of these amenities away from me. And of course, the lease will probably have some language that states, yeah, this can happen and so forth. But, why should I continue to pay full rent if I don't have all these amenities?
Yeah, well, here's the deal, right? I'd be interested in, given you're a multifamily guy and I'm a residential guy. I'll just ask it because I see it coming, but I could be wrong, because every time I think of something, I just realize I could have a bias that is my blind spot. I believe there's going to be a lot of people leaving Class A apartments and going to houses, even as tenants. I'm not even talking about buying, because I think staying at home in an apartment, not as easy as staying home in a house that has a backyard.
I agree with, if I'm right now paying $3,000 or $4,000 in like a Class AAA, high rise or fancy building, and I don't have my spa. I don't have my indoor heated saltwater pool, and my my doggy park. So Fido can go pee on a fire hydrant.
And then elevators, right? I only could do 4 people in an elevator now, and oh, by the way, it takes me forever to get inside. And I mean, just all these things, in my opinion, are making Class A or AAA stuff, especially high rise, very not attractive.
Yeah, and the espresso bar is closed, where I could get my
there you go,
my frappuccino, my Starbucks, and
your
so
smoothie.
Forth. These are all amenities you sold me on, and I don't have them now. And listen, it's not like we first have to look at. It's not like these owners are closing them on purpose.
No, of course not.
I mean, they're like, liability wise, I've got to close this stuff down, and so forth. So that's the problem. And I think unfortunately with the situation we're in now also is, I think we're going to also see a lot of lawsuits come out, from this. There's because one thing right now is I'm just thinking, okay, so let's say Jim, who is on the ground floor in apartment 101, Jim calls up Margie, the property manager, and say, Margie, I can't pay rent. Well, why can't you pay rent? I've been diagnosed with COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I have it. And let's say Jim sends Margie, the property manager, all the proof.
Okay, and
He's been fired. He's COVID positive, and so forth.
Mm.
Now, Jane, who lives above Jim, contracts COVID. We don't know if it was because of Jim downstairs, or because she went to the store and got it.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? Now Mark on the third floor contracts it. Now you got a building that is exploding with COVID.
Yeah,
and
it's scary. Yeah.
What do you do then?
Yeah. I don't even want to think about that because that's bad. That's bad. Actually, one question I want to ask you, that's terrifying. The more I played it in my head, that's terrifying. This is a question again. A guy who's got deep pockets, a checkbook, proven operator, avoided the bad stuff. As you look into the future, let's just talk next year. What asset type, and then what? So let's do asset type first. What asset type excites you? Which one frightens you? Meaning you can't reprice or it's falling apart. Then we'll talk about, is there an area of the country you like and an area of the country you don't like? So let's go to asset type first.
Sure thing. Let's talk hotels.
Okay.
So I think hotels scares me, but where I think what I would do with hotels is two things, and it only works in certain markets.
Okay.
Take a hotel, convert it into a student housing project, where now because it's got a bed, it's got a bathroom, it's so forth, and kids.
It's wired. It's wired for TVs and stuff. That makes sense.
Exactly. It's got I've got my TV. It's got high speed internet.
Very creative. Okay.
So that's something. Or micro apartments.
Yeah. I was thinking that too. Then you got just not to play devil's advocate, but you're going to have to get around the parking constraint, at least in my market, right?
Parking, and then you've got to go now talk to the city or the county, because now this is going from hotel to residential. Is there school capacity? Is there traffic capacity?
That's a good idea, though.
Be a problem.
Yeah, but I think the student housing, student housing, micro. And again, what is the biggest problem in the U.S.? Bar none, at least in housing, it's affordable housing. So micro apartments, I think is a genius idea. Even if you did micro condos, I mean, heaven forbid, right? You just find a way to carve up a little 10-foot kitchen or something. I think that's genius. Okay, so that's creative. That's turning lemons into lemonade. Hotels, because I think hotels is most scariest. But you're right. I was thinking buy a hotel, keep a hotel. But you're right. Buy a hotel, turn it into a different asset. You're a genius. Okay, that's good.
Well, because then you've got already a gym, you got the pool, you've got
you got a lobby,
and you turn that kind of make into a study area or a shared library or something.
Pretty cool.
And then hey, you could even, if you want to, you've got the breakfast area. You could maybe $5 a day, or maybe that's included. People can come grab breakfast.
Genius.
So forth. So that's one thing I would look at doing. But again, that's only going to work in certain markets. Because
it's a good idea.
Out in Timbuktu, it's not going to work.
Okay, I like that.
Retail, you could do two things with the retail. But the retail, you're going to have to get a major discount.
Yeah.
Because what's going to happen is, again, you're a bank, so you've really got to continuously be looking at how are these tenants operating.
Right.
And let's be honest, right now, going forward, they're not going to be doing well.
No.
So you're going to have to give them some type of break.
Yep.
So hey, maybe no rent, 50% rent, 30% rent. Do you convert? I've seen, before, large Macy's stores that have been converted like into self-storage
Ah,
space.
interesting.
So maybe do you start converting some spaces into self-storage? Um, but I would still be worried. I just,
Yeah, there's not a great answer for a mall that's anchored by 3 or 4 major operators: Macy's, Bloomingburg, J.C. Penney's. List goes on and on. Not a great model today. It worked great in the 80s. Doesn't work so well in the 2020s. I agree with you. That one scares me because nobody's solved the riddle for how do I take a big box and make it productive. Yeah, that's.
And let's say, God forbid, you have a movie theater. What do you do with the movie
Oh,
theater?
there's a mall right around me that just opened a movie theater with really plush seating and all of that. I'm like, ouch, that's gotta hurt.
And then, has now movie theater business changed? Is it now
Forever.
like, hey, we're just going to stream everything at
Yeah,
home?
that's what
and
Universal did.
and
Yeah, exactly.
and that's it. There's no longer, because I mean, if you look at movie theaters, where movie theaters make money, it's the popcorn, the
Concessions.
Coca-Cola, and so forth. The
Yeah.
concessions.
Yeah.
They're just breaking even. I know people say, well, they're charging me, $10-15. I mean, how could they be breaking even? But you just don't. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a massive facility. There's a lot of operational costs, and then
Totally
you got to pay the royalties and so forth.
Yeah, totally get it.
So that becomes scary.
Yeah.
And so forth. Let's see. I think industrial will do well.
I think so.
I don't think we. I don't think
warehouses and all that. Yeah, just fine. Totally agree.
I've not really done my homework on self-storage, but I know a lot of people always say, self-storage and mobile home parks, these places are recession-proof.
Yeah. I don't know anything. That's a rule of thumb. I don't know different like you. So sure. Yeah. I think that's all good advice. I love the way you think. Okay. Now, what part of actually, we'll go here first. What part of the country scares you? You're like, ooh, I don't want to look at an asset there just yet.
I don't know if it scares me, but I would be
nervous
nervous.
Yeah.
Right away, Florida and Las Vegas.
Yeah, I agree.
Florida and Vegas.
Yeah.
Or wherever there's going to be a lot tourism focused. If there is a large tourism focus, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah. What do you think about New York? What about New York? I have a thesis that New York won't be New York for another decade, because I just see this being the pen that forces more people to leave, right? They're going to get out of the whole density living and they're going to go, get a house. And then there's a whole nother generation that usually would fill in behind those people that are just not going to come, given that New York's a hotspot this year. Do you see pain in New York, or am I just overthinking it given I'm way out here in California?
First off, I think New York has been very aggressive. I mean, they build, the guy next to you built a 60-story building. Well, shoot, I'm going to build a 70-story building. Mm-hmm. And, it's going to be top dollar and expensive. I don't, there's definitely a ton of money. I mean, New York is the financial capital.
No question.
I think, what maybe makes sense is, can you buy something at a discount? For example, my brother lives in New York, and in his studio, he's paying, I think, almost $3,000. Okay. And this is not anything fancy, or he's in, I think, Manhattan, I think on the west side, or and so forth. And it's nothing sexy by any means. It's like a 5-story walk up, no elevator, no bellman or anything. I mean, it's and this building was probably built in the 40s or 50s. It's not sexy by any means. And that's it is what it is. I think if you can try to get something and you're paying this close to whatever your rent is, and you can convert that into a mortgage and get a
Okay.
discount, that makes sense. I
Okay.
mean,
I agree with that.
people have made a ton of money in New York by buying condos at substantial discounts,
Totally
holding
agree.
on to them for a couple of years, and selling them. But of
Okay.
course, that's a different ballpark. One, you've got to have that cash, and
Yeah.
two, you know,
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
bet.
Yeah. You're gonna have to
Um,
hold for a while.
I,
Yeah.
you have to,
Yeah. I like
and
that.
so forth. You know, and you know, New York is tough. It bounces back. I mean, it
That's
always
true.
has.
It's got a little grit to
It
it.
kind of, yeah. It's. I mean, I bet if you asked someone maybe 10, 15 years ago, would you buy in Brooklyn? They'll
Yeah.
tell you no.
That's a good
But
point.
now Brooklyn has, quote unquote, gentrified, or because of the where
Sure.
the arena was built.
Oh, you're
You
right.
know,
Yeah.
it's that's now millionaires row. I mean,
Yeah.
that
You're right.
stuff now is expensive, so
Yeah. No, you're right.
it changes. But again, do you have that fortitude?
Oh, yeah.
I tell anyone is you've got the best. Listen, focus on cash flow.
Yes.
You want that monthly check.
Agreed.
You know, you know, a hit here and there. You'll score a home run. One
Yeah.
plus one plus one plus one. Get you to a home run. You don't
Yeah.
gotta, buy something and hey, this thing's gotta explode. Just cash flow is key, because once the bills come in, and if there's no revenue, well, I mean,
Yeah.
simple
Just
math would tell you, you're upside down now. I mean, how are you going to pay the bills?
it
I
doesn't
mean, and
work. Yeah.
how long will people wait on you?
Yeah.
Um, I'm excited about multifamily.
Yes.
I think there's a major disconnect, which is of course expected,
Yeah.
where sellers are and where buyers will be. I think we're a couple football fields apart. You
Agreed.
know,
100% agree. They remember yesterday and you want tomorrow, and we're in this little gray zone right now. Yeah.
yeah, and it's very far apart. And and some people will say, well, hey, buyer, you're being too greedy. You want a major this. You pretty much you want to wipe me out, and you want to buy at the loan or below the loan. And hey, seller, you're thinking, these are the good old days where
Yeah.
it's everything is going great, and the economy is kicking butt, and next year I'm going to push rents up by
Yeah.
$50 or whatever is 3, 4, 5%,
Yeah.
and so forth. Just like for a while, people were very hot on Arizona. I mean,
True.
people loved Arizona because they were saying, "Hey, Arizona's going 8%," and so forth. I was like, well, if you again go back to 07, 09, Arizona was beat up as hard as
Smashed.
Florida,
Yeah.
and people always tell me, well, you don't know what you're talking about. Things have now changed, and I'll be like, listen, I'm not, hey, if you don't learn from the past, you're doomed to repeat it. So,
Yeah. Totally agree.
yes, maybe things have changed. Lending requirements. Back then, John, who doesn't have a job, could get that $300,000-$400,000 loan and buy the house and so forth. Yeah, okay, I
Yeah.
agree. Yes, things like that were happening.
Yeah.
Are we in a different time period? Yes, we are. But one thing we've learned is we can't go that. I mean, we as a society, it's not like we always keep a lot of money in reserves.
Yeah.
It's not like, yeah, sure, I 6 months, no problem. I can sit back, watch my Netflix, my Hulu,
Mm.
and so forth. And we've learned, as a society, we're kind of, we don't keep a lot,
Yeah.
put aside.
You're right. Yeah. I want to ask this one last question as we wrap this up. What one market excites you as you look at 2021 and beyond? Like, hey, I want to pick something up there. And then I guess is your number one asset multifamily? I think you said that earlier. So what's the one city or county or state that you're like, ooh, I'm going to clean up there? Do you have a favorite yet, or maybe not?
I'd say we're definitely very interested in Texas, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. Um, you know, I think it's going to be very interesting. If you look at what I just said, let's just focus Georgia and Texas. Those opened up early,
Yes.
so it's going to be interesting to see how do those areas respond?
Yeah.
Do they, knock on wood,
Let's wish them luck. Good luck,
thanks
Georgia and
be God
Texas.
that everything goes. Yeah, exactly. Hey, everything goes well, or do they have a spike and and then what do they do? Do they have to shut down again, or do they go to some type of movement cycle? And then the last thing I would say is one thing I'm not seeing a lot of multifamily folks focus on is there's a backlog right now in the court system. So let's say, first off, depending where you're at, let's just say for argument's sake, you can now start evictions.
Okay.
So, today, May 1st, you can actually now go serve that notice and so forth. You give them, the 3 or 5 days, whatever is required by law. They don't pay you. So now you can file that eviction.
Yep.
First off, is the courthouse going to accept it?
Yeah.
They'll say, okay, yeah, sure, file it, no problem. But hey, we got 2 or 3 months backlog.
Yeah.
And then possibly that person you filed an eviction on is not going to be like, yeah, hey, here's June, here's July, here's August.
They're going to skip. They're going to skip. Yeah. Yeah. This is going to be an interesting time. Again, I love this conversation. I think it validates that the time frame is maybe longer than it's farther away, right? When this was first coming around, I'm like, ooh, gonna find some deals this year. Reality, just with like the court systems and the forbearance, it's probably 2021. I loved your idea, Ronnie, about looking at debt, buying the debt, right? Whether it's renegotiating your own debt like you did in Florida, or looking to pick up debt going forward. Lots of great stuff, Ronnie. How can people reach out to you, follow you?
Sure thing. They can check out our website, yourtcp.com, or my email address is Ronnie, which is RONI @yourtcp.com. And if I can help any way or get you in contact with someone, we're kind of very teamwork approached here, and it's a small world. We'll definitely run into each other somehow or be able to help each other. And then most importantly, just kind of wish everyone, safety and health during these tough times, and, focus on that, and, business-wise, everything else usually comes into place.
Ronnie, that was a great close. Well, you do me a favor, keep my contact details handy in case you find anything in Fresno, California. I'm not opposed to adding more.
California is difficult, man. I mean, that's I don't know why you want to deal with all the headaches that California brings. I mean, that's
I got a big bruise right here. I just keep it.
I mean, you must love, being a landlord, but the government tells you what to do with your property and what you can rent it for, and giving tenants so much control. Yeah, it's almost better to be a tenant if you really think about it, because I mean, you've got so many protections.
Yes, that's very true. Very true. All right, buddy, you take care of yourself. All right.
Take care. Thank you so much.
You got it.